Hello everyone, welcome back to OCD Recovery's YouTube channel. Today I'm going to talk about something, I decided that I think one of the best things to do is do a somatic OCD or hyperawareness video at least once a month because it's just not really well understood. A lot of the information out there really doesn't actually get you underneath your core fears. So I'm going to do a lot of recap videos, talk about specific people or things I've seen in hyperawareness, why people think they're different, and stuff like that. But before I go any further, if you could please subscribe down below. A lot of videos going up by myself. Moment actually just did one. Kirsty's been doing a couple. She hasn't been feeling well. But Moment did a really good video that came out today, which is August 23rd, on empathy. And I was talking to him about it. I said, you have such a strong foundation for explaining empathy in a really good, compassionate manner, and why that can be really important for a sufferer's perspective or a family member's perspective. So, back to somatic OCD, aka hyperawareness. Oh my gosh, the best thing ever. So I try to have one cup of water for every cup of coffee. That doesn't always work out. So what is somatic OCD or hyperawareness? Now, we know the most common fears that it attaches to. First of all, it's just a fear. It's a fear of a sensation. A lot of people think that their particular fear is real and it's the one that means the most, whether it's ROCD, POCD, sensory motor, aka somatic OCD, existential, solipsism, fear of pens, fear of anything. It's just OCD, and OCD knows you very well, and probably a combination of environmental and cultural background. Genetics, we know, plays a huge part on why particular fears stick to you. Why does ROCD not stick to me? Probably because I don't value connection. It's not that I don't value it at all. I just don't value it maybe in the way that Hannah or Kirsty valued it. So it's stuck. I value being comfortable and not feeling any sort of physical discomfort, hence why it's stuck a lot with me in somatic OCD, which is an interesting part. You don't really need to understand that, but it is a cool thing to talk about. So one of the most common misconceptions with somatic OCD or hyperawareness, besides you thinking that you're treatment resistant, which you are 100% not treatment resistant, is that people don't quite understand the internal compulsions that are happening when you're scared. So we have what's called the internal thermometer. This is a thermometer, okay? The thermometer is filled, the thermometer is empty. Throughout your day, in the morning when you wake up, before you go to sleep, you're constantly, I just got so distracted. You're constantly going up and down this thermometer, checking, do I feel more sensation today? Am I more hyper aware of my breathing now? What about when I go to the gym? What about when I go hiking? Is it there when I wake up? Is it what? That is so compulsive, and it keeps us stuck, and so many people do not understand that. So exposure response prevention, the gold standard, ERP exposures, kind of goes out the window, and thoughts are just thoughts, even though it has importance, goes out the window for these types of off fears, existential, solipsism, real event, false memory, somatic OCD, for example, because it's not that straightforward as more of a graded response would say, maybe contamination OCD, where your compulsions are still mental a lot, but outright compulsive, outward physical, avoiding doorknobs and stuff like that. Every fear has a unique aspect about it, but it's all still OCD. It's all still a fear. Exposures are usually necessary, more than likely necessary for all of them. Somatic OCD exposures, this tends to be avoidance. So people won't go to certain scenarios because they're afraid that other people will notice them thinking about their breathing. They might not go to a concert because they're afraid they're going to look at someone who might be maybe, got a cough, and then they'll look at that and say to themselves, oh my gosh, I can't look at that, or I'm going to be hyper aware of my coughing. These are all avoidance behaviors. Avoidance behaviors, poor life structure, poor routines and habits, and the internal thermometer are the biggest problems with somatic OCD. That is it. It is just a fear. Now, something else I talk to about with people in the somatic and hyperawareness realm when it comes to fears, a lot of this has huge carryover to physical manifestations of anxiety, such as GAD as well. Paul David's book, Self-Help for Your Nerves, describes a huge part, but the reason they're not first on the reading list is because a lot of it has to do with uncertainty and floating past thoughts and just keep on going. While that is extremely important, it is not going to get, not for everyone, but for a lot of people, it really will not get underneath that unless you look at the core fear, which is being stuck forever and it ruining the rest of your life. Now, a lot of people say, I've had people talk to me, hold on one second. You see this cup? So I have all these cups around the beach because when my dad passed away, he had a beach house in New Jersey, and I took all the cups because they're sweet. I took all the cups. My sister took the front door off the house. Took the front door off the house. The realtor was probably like, where's the door? My sister's like, I don't know. So yeah, anyway, what were we talking about again? This is a great video. Oh my gosh. Internal compulsions, stuff like that, mental stuff. Oh, so people think what happens is people think that, I've had people talk to me and they say stuff like, well, no, I've watched all your videos, but that doesn't pertain to me. And it will be a hyper awareness. Now, OCD loves to make you think that your hyper awareness or your physical sensation. I've talked to people that have had different mouth awarenesses, feet awarenesses, toes awarenesses, bridge of the nose awareness, back awareness like Brianna, all these different things. It's the same thing. OCD wants you to think that you're alone. A hyper-awareness is a hyper-awareness, no matter what the physical sensation is. It doesn't matter. The core fear is, if I know this is forever, my life will be ruined. Who says your life will be ruined? Is there a universal law that says your life will be ruined? Absolutely not. There is no universal law that states that if you know this is sensation forever, that your life is automatically ruined, but we catastrophize and blow it up. So let's break it down. Get out of here, bud. Fly in my room. This thing's really hanging out in here, isn't it? This is my favorite video to date. So what happens is it wants you to feel alone, like I said. So the fear of it ruining your life for the rest of your life, that is absolutely gigantic. And then the fear of noticing it ruining like all the enjoyments you have in your life. So, weddings, friendships, going out with your family members, your spouse, and so forth. Once you start to break that fear down and realize that it's not as bad as you made it out to be, the fear will come down. But for someone like myself, Paul Little, Brianna, we needed to work on these fears in order to bring the catastrophizing down. It was not going to release unless we actually worked on these fears. This is something that a lot of people get wrong. The thoughts or thoughts approach does have validity in certain aspects of recovery, but it is probably more than likely the least important part when it comes to the whole entire process for a lot of people. Again, it has validity. It's just not what really needs to be done, especially for somatic OCD. So it has nothing to do with the sensation. That sensation has been there your whole life. You are salivating, you are breathing, you are blinking, you have a bridge of your nose, you have toes, you have fingers, since that whole life so far. Okay, especially breathing, blinking, salivating, heartbeat, that's going to be there until you die. So that goes out the window for wanting it to go away. It's never going to go away, ever going to go away. Guess what happens when you don't breathe? You die. Now, health anxiety can be attached to somatic OCD, but that's a different topic. Brianna's talked about that a lot, which is awesome. I had no fear about like going blind or any fear about like drowning in my saliva or anything like that. I had a fear that I'm going to notice this for the rest of my life. It's going to ruin my life, blah, blah, blah. So I basically, in the beginning of my journey, it was really hard. I didn't just automatically say to myself, oh, you're no longer going to care about this fear and go about your day. I was so scared for so long. It took me, I was in a mental hospital before I found Rob. Not everyone ends up in a mental hospital, but I ended up in a mental hospital. So it took me a while to start to adopt these philosophies. Now, when I talk to people in the WhatsApp groups, in the Facebook group, in Instant Messenger, all these things, the number one thing everyone's doing, majority of people, is they're asking me how they can use acceptance to get out of the way they're, see, I just said, how do I use it to get out? That's not how it works. It's an adoption. It's a philosophy. It takes time to adapt and see. It's a perspective shift. I was just like that for a year. I was every way I was trying to force it. I read all the books in like 3 days because I'm a maniac. So, but it really was actually probably the least productive. I was still learning the tools, but I wasn't adopting them because I didn't realize it's something you adopt. Why do you believe certain things? Anything. Why do you, I don't know. Why do you believe that the color red is red? I don't know, something weird like that, because you've learned that it's red and you saw red things and you didn't try to force it. You weren't like, that's red, that's red, that's red. Is it black? Is it blue? Is it green? No, you just let it adopt over time. The best example is When you break your leg, this is from Man's Search for Meaning, At Last the Light by Paul David, which I'll be doing another couple of videos going through chapters in that book for the physical anxiety symptoms. But when you break your leg, you don't jump around your leg saying, I heal right now, heal right now, right now. You have to heal right now. You don't do that. And it sounds so funny, but that's what we do with OCD. We're like, you got to heal right now. And if you don't heal right now, I'm going to lose it. In the reality, that's not how it actually works. But the biggest misconception, besides the one I already said about the internal thermometer, about somatic OCD, is that you are somehow treatment resistant because it's not well understood. Now, the reason why it's not well understood, in my opinion, is because it's just not very common, more than likely. Maybe it is, and people just don't know they have it. And not a lot of people have had it, recovered, and came through to talk about their stories. So you have me, Brianna, Paul, Rob. There's 4 out of 8 billion people. That's insane to think about. That's crazy. So think about how many people had somatic OCD like 200 years ago, 300, 400, 500,000 years ago, and they had imagine that. Just imagine any fear. I mean, look at blasphemy. Look at religious OCD and the way how it kind of just like stuck in and anchored in on people. So remember, it has nothing to do with the fear. It's the perspective of the fear. Now, easier said than done. It takes time. You can't just look at someone and say to yourself, that person doesn't care about their saliva. I shouldn't care. Remember the shoulds, ought, and musts from Albert Ellis. But then you say to yourself, well, why does it bother them? I don't know why it bothers them, blah, blah, blah. You go crazy. But Kirsty did say a really cool point that stuck with me, and I use it from time to time. You know, she's like, I do like to look at other people who are not scared of what I'm scared of, and I think to myself, why aren't they scared? It's not the whole journey, but it's a cool part to look at it. So just a little recap video on sensory motor. I did some really good stuff on debunking 5 myths. I talked about how people say they can make themselves experience it. That's absolutely bullshit, not real. You can't make yourself experience OCD if you don't have OCD. It's a disorder. That's like me saying, I'm going to make myself experience malignant cancer without having cancer. It is not an intelligent thing to say the least. So, but that's just the reality of the fact. It doesn't mean anything about the person who said it. I just don't understand. I don't understand anything about having a menstrual cycle. Just the reality of it. So, but yeah, that's the video for today. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I'll get back to the whiteboard this week. I've just been really busy, and I think it's a little easier for me if I have this stuff here and do that. But I do like using the whiteboard, and I get a lot of good feedback on that. But yeah, that's that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe down below. If you have any other questions about somatic OCD hyperawareness, please shoot them down below. I'm more than willing to tell you what works for me, what I don't think works for other people. A lot of people ask me about mindfulness meditation with somatic OCD and why I don't think it's beneficial, especially for somatic OCD since you're already so internally focused. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.